Today's episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast is sponsored by TCG Player, your source for all your trading card game needs. Use our link in the description the next time you get your cards to help support the show. Today's episode is also made possible by our Patreon subscribers. If you want to support the show directly, head over to patreon.com/the Mind Sculptors and you can become part of the Sculpty family today. Or if you don't want to do any of that, leave a like and comment on YouTube or a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as an offering to Algorithm Jesus.
Why, yes, sports fans, you're right. It is the day that Bridgerton Part 1 of Season 3 is released on Netflix. So many of you recognize that theme.
What'd you say?
I said, yes, as many of you recognize the Bridgerton theme, as today is the day Season 3 is released on Netflix. Cal and I are coming in with a very different energy today, so for all those, gay members of the audience and those with wives, welcome to my half of the podcast. Cal's going to take the sporties, and I assume we won't really have any people left in the middle.
I'm also married. You're not married, notably.
Right, no, and I get that, and I do, but I think I fell under the gays category, but... Just saying, one of us was watching Bridgerton before this, and the other one was playing Red Dead Redemption. We all know who it is.
It's very true. I've been trying to hunt every legendary animal in the game, and just got to say that nothing makes me go, do I think hunting is cool? Like, do I want to try that more than spending hours just tracking random shit in Red Dead Redemption? Just.
As your friend, I do think, I can call this shot here. You would definitely be the person who, got there, saddled up correctly, took down the buck, right? And then walks over, sees a dead animal, and just bawls, just full cries, and cannot. I think you would be so good until that last moment when you're like, oh, man, that fucking sucks. I killed a deer.
You say that. I fucking hate deer.
Okay.
If it was like any other animal, yes.
Sure.
Deer are an invasive species that we could literally get rid of and it would not change the biome whatsoever.
They're the lime scooters of animals.
No lies detected. But yeah, here today we are doing our Sculptybois Q&A episode.
If you couldn't tell by the intro.
The hunting really gave it away.
Yeah. The ESPN into the hunting.
The fact that you don't know what that theme song is and you just throw out buzzwords.
Is it not ESPN?
No, that's not ESPN.
I know it was some sport thing because I recognize it from my youth. Oh, whatever.
It's like a meme, right? Come on. You have some media literacy.
I knew I recognized it. I was like, that is sport.
It's not like I pulled out like sports fans are with me on this one. Anyway.
Oh, no, for sure. I'm in the wrong here.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got some great questions here lined up from both our patrons and some folks on Twitter that we reached out to. And we will be doing a drawing that you'll get a message from me if you're listening to this the day of, if you won or not, but I have some MTGO play points to give away. So we will be doing that as well. Just, you will not be hearing that on the show. I'll just be reaching out to people and make a post about it. So we've got some good questions here. Our first one is from our friend John over at the Gemstone Mine. Asking us which commander is on the verge of being playable and what kind of cards would need to be printed to get you to sleeve that commander up? I feel like you and I have a lot of these, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Like decks that are just like right there.
Right. For me, that I mean, I have 600 decks on Moxfield, and I don't bring 600 decks to tournaments. So, like,
yeah,
right. I think you're probably a better person to answer this because I feel like you have a very particular taste, and like there are certain things you will and will not sleeve up for that reason, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think a really good example is I think like Dr. Madison Lee is just like one broken energy card away from being like super viable.
Sure.
It's like one of those things where I also think that like it's just like one of those things where I think energy just only having like the 2 sets and then the Fallout set, it's not really like enough to like really flesh that mechanic out in a meaningful way.
Right.
But if any indication of what I've been seeing out of Modern Horizons 3, like I think that it is quite possible that Dr. Madison Lee is about to like become quite viable. I don't know because I haven't seen anything explicitly that combos with it.
Yeah.
But just based on some of the previews I've been seeing, is it gives me a hunch that there will be something broken in it.
You got to assume. Like I know for every energy card I've read so far, I've just been like, okay, yeah. So it does a lot of energy, and it's got like 3 paragraphs worth of words. And if you have energy from other stuff in the deck, then this is probably pretty good. And like that's where my brain goes. With that.
There's also the one card that is just like what's the thing that loops with Dockside? I forget what it's called.
Chthonian Nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, we're not. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing with this set, right? Like there's 2 or 3 like functional reprints for energy purposes, right? That are like kind of better than previous cards, right? Yeah. We have our Recurring Nightmare at home, and we have our Gilded Drake at home, both of which technically have upside over the thing they're reprinted over, right? So it's like,
honestly, I mean, totally off topic. I think it's fucking bananas they are putting Gilded Drake into Modern. Like that is wild to me.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm not like
I don't think it's super crazy good or anything. I just think it's a card that I was just like, it was not even on my radar of things that they would consider putting into Modern.
Yeah. I also think like Chthonian Nightmare is like, I mean, we can talk about Modern Horizons when we finally do a set review, but that card
that's going to be like a 3-part episode, I swear to God.
Yeah. I think genuinely like of all the cards in the set, that one is going to actually change cEDH. Like I think there's going to be like real decks just around that card, like archetypes that couldn't exist before. But we don't have to go too deep into that.
Yeah. But I mean, that being said, like that point being is that they're very clearly pushing energy, like very specifically trying to make energy playable in like why did my brain just completely turn off there? They're trying to make it playable in constructed formats.
Yes, in eternal formats. Yeah,
in eternal. Thank you, eternal formats. My brain was like in legacy formats, and I was like, that's not correct. That's just a format.
That is but one.
That is one. But no, it's very clear that they're trying to do that, and so it's like I think Dr. Madison Lee is one of those cards that I think it's really anything that has to do with energy. I think is just like right on that edge of being playable, and so I'm interested to see what we get out of that overall.
Yeah, I think to answer the question that we were previously asked, I think my like I know I'm not bringing it right now, but we're so close is like goblins. Right, like it just does like an archetype.
Muxus
like,
is one of those things, man.
I've messed around with 4-mana Krenko. I've messed around with Muxus. I'm just like, yeah, you've got the one combo in those decks. I was like, but they're so close to having more. Like I'm almost there.
Yeah, and it's also because we like brewed that a couple times. It was like every time we did it, we were like, this is just missing like one piece of making this work.
It does feel like that, right? Like it's just so close, right? Like Muxus can go infinite with Dockside, and you can. It's a 1-card combo with Goblin Recruiter, right? But it's like. Yeah, it's an 8 mana combo with Goblin Recruiter too, right? Like so, it's a whole thing.
Hogak's also one of those cards that I also feel like is just like super close to being
I agree.
like.
I agree.
It's every because I brewed it a lot in as like a brain freeze like stand-in almost, because you can like do similar-esque things with that and like Altar of Dementia. And it's just like, man, it feels like it's just like a piece or two away from being like super good. But it's kind of hard. And like I've seen some of the like dredge stuff that they're printing in this set, which looks bananas, and it's just
we'll see what happens for sure. I definitely think like we're gonna see whether things from my Mitch 3 are gonna come up. One, because they're fresh on the mind, and two, because this set's kind of looking a little busto. So like makes sense.
This feels like the first set that we're gonna have that feels like format defining. But that being said, let's. Next question here is from our good friend Kai, Fervent Alchemist.
Hey.
Top 3 decks of all time, in your personal opinion.
Top 3 cEDH decks of all time? Okay.
I mean, I think Sushi Hulk is there, obviously, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think Sushi Hulk goes there.
I guess it's our parameters to define what we mean. Deck
is
of
it
all
like
time?
top 3 favorites or 3 best? Like that's very, that's very different. Like
for me, I'm going to go with most impactful, right? Okay. So I think Sushi Hulk, pretty definitive, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I mean, obviously, I think we have to put Blue Farm on there, right? It changed the format. It was one of the only decks that won a tournament when Sushi Hulk was the main deck.
You know what else I think is like notable as like a thing, and this is like even farther back, is like Shimmer Zur was super format defining for so long.
Whatever you say, Grandpa.
Well, the thing is you're like a cEDH boomer, but like I've been around even longer than you, which is wild.
You're a fucking fossil Pokemon.
Which is weird because like we're in a group of people who like have been around even longer than me.
Yeah.
And like it's just like they were there at the like, at the singularity.
I literally will talk to people about like, remember Flash Hulk? And they're like, well, no, not really. I'm like, what?
What do you mean you don't remember Flash Hulk? I was like, anytime I see people talking about unbanning Flash, I'm just like, so I see you didn't play during that era, huh?
There were people who were, but I think here's my hot take. You ready for this? I think the other one's Winota. Okay. I think as far as like decks that genuinely warped the format for a while, Winota did that, right? Like it fundamentally changed the way we played the game for quite some time. And I'm going to toot my own horn when I talk about this, right? But like also a big part of Winota changing the format wasn't tied to me. It was just tied to what the deck did to the format as a whole, right?
Like just a lot of people throwing the deck together, right? Yeah,
right. And so like, the existence of this deck like just allowed everything to change for a hot minute, right? The format just looked differently. Turbo Nas wasn't able to just like step on everybody's toes and dance circles around them for a bit, right? And so that created some sort of balance to the format. But I mean, there's balance to the force. I think that's where you giggling. Yeah. But I mean, it's also arguable to just like Thras Tymna as a deck, period. Like whatever, bullshit you fit inside that shell, right? It's always going to be a definitive deck in the format, and it's not, nearly what it was now, but doesn't mean people can't still build it and do well with it, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, like it just like I think that's this thing. I think for me, it's like I think my 3 would be like Sushi Hulk, Shimmer Zur, because those two are like decks that live rent free like in my brain for a long time. I think another deck that I think of when it really like dominated a lot of the like general consciousness for a period of time was like Gitrog Dredge for a while.
I was thinking about Gitrog as this inclusion, right? Because despite Gitrog being kind of like a like what feels almost like a meme now, right? Gitrog was just one of those decks that like got a ton of people playing cEDH, right? It has been around forever, and as opposed to the other decks that are around forever, you still have so many devotees to this deck, like still willing to like play this at tournaments, pick it up as their first deck, like and for a difficult deck, it is for some reason one that is often recommended to
somebody
new players.
who thought about doing their masters in Gitrog Monster cEDH. It is. I was very close to that, but I ended up going down the Lavinia track instead, and I'm much more happy with that masters.
I hate that you're more happy with that, to be honest. I don't know what that says about Gitrog.
Listen, I'm much happier with my. I feel like the control plan learning that I got from my Lavinia masters was a lot more helpful for the current meta than learning the intricacies of how to make the Gitrog machine work.
No, I don't disagree.
But yeah, no, I think that really those are like the three decks that in my mind, like for whatever period they were around for, really were like definitive in my estimation. Another deck that I think of too is like Chainveil Teferi is also very like definitive of the format for a long period of time. There are so many, but like those are the ones that I think of. Next question. This one, when I read it earlier, when I was looking at these the first time, I like sat for like a good 15 minutes trying to figure out the answer to, and I still have no idea. This is a question from name is Josh, and the question Josh submitted to us is, what is the most important keyword a creature can have in cEDH? Yeah, I read that and I went, it's a good question.
I think the cursed answer is Ward, right?
Yeah. I'm going to posit that Flash is one of the best, most important keywords a creature can have in cEDH.
So, is it a creature or a commander? Does it say?
It says a creature can have.
Oh, easily Flash then. Yeah, I think that's a slam dunk on Flash. Hexproof is maybe is the other one, right? But like, yeah, no, I do agree. I think Flash is 100% the word, right? Because if you look at some of the most impactful creatures in the format that have keywords in them, right? So if I think about like defining creatures right now in cEDH, right? Dauthi Voidwalker, no keywords. Drannith Magistrate, no keywords, right? The ones that do come up are Mana Dorks, still no keywords, right? And then we talk about Bowmasters.
That's not true. Drannith does have a keyword. It's called Shadow.
Drannith? You mean Dauthi?
Or Dauthi. Yeah, Dauthi has a keyword.
Yeah, I thought we were talking more evergreen keywords, but sure.
That is an evergreen keyword.
Shadow is not evergreen.
It is not tied to one set.
It's not tied to one set. Doesn't mean it's evergreen. It only came back in a Horizon set. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Whatever. But it's a mechanic. It is a keyword. They didn't say evergreen in the question.
No, listen, Cal, I understand the subtleties of evergreen keywords, but I don't understand the fucking sports theme song from Fox, apparently. So, like, this is my line in the sand.
Okay.
It was more of a self-diss than anything else.
I was like, I'm like over here sitting there and I'm trying to like piece that one together. Like, all right, whatever.
I think the only other comparable one is like flying, right?
Yeah.
Just because
Vigilance is up there. Vigilance.
Yeah, Tim does a good card, turns out, right? Like, but think about how many times people have specifically bitched about Crom being a 4/4 flyer, right? Like that is the dialogue. The Obnixilus being a flying trampler, right? Like that, those words have like come up a lot. Malcolm being a flyer,
6/6
right?
in the air, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah. Tivit being a 6/6 in the air, right? Like same with the Traxa, right? Like these words have come up a good amount when speaking about these cards and their actual like utility in the game, right? So I do agree, Flash is fucking busted, right? And I think that's
Flash and Flying, I think, are like
Flash and Flying probably feel like the best ones, and then obviously Hexproof can be pretty impactful too, but we don't have enough Hexproof threats.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I that's if I can flash in a flyer.
If only there was an impactful flash flyer that could prevent your opponent's searching libraries.
But it's a 2/1, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
and thus the cEDH meta is created.
Next question comes from William, and William asks us, when will Stax be good again?
William. You know, I once had dreams.
I too once dreamt.
I too once believed that the world could self-correct, that things would be good again, but I'm an old man now. And I've left foolish fancy behind me, William. Now,
listen, for how many times have you tried to revive Winota over the past 2 years?
Okay.
Boy, like
for real? The newest set actually for real. Like the one. The one. No, I mean, we literally just top 16 to 76 person event with it, right? So it's like it is actually positioning itself to be in a better spot. High Noon is a broken Magic card, right? So like I actually think that's a huge part of Winota actually being kind of played.
During that set review when I was like, I think Winota's the only deck that cares about this card.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It turns out it really cares about it though.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, back to our good friend, our poor innocent William. No, so I know there's been sort of a push lately for a Rhystic ban, right? And I did actually comment on someone's post recently, I believe it was a member of the CAG, where I basically said the words like, you know, because I've been pushing for Bowmasters to eat shit for quite some time, right? That card sucks. It's really bad for the meta, et cetera, right? There are people who argue the same about Rhystic Study, and I had a conversation with a couple people, including Rocket Man a couple weeks ago, and I was like, he's like, you know, if you think Bowmasters is a problem, doesn't the Rhystic ban make even more sense? And I was like, honestly, I don't hate that point at all. I was like, that is hyper valid, and so
here's my rebuttal to that is that Rhystic gets a lot worse when you can play cards that restrict Rhystic Study, right? But
sure,
we can't really do that right now because of Bowmasters. So it's like,
I don't even think what you said is a rebuttal. I think you're just like adding to the point, right? Is like, Rhystic feeds Bowmasters, which feeds against the decks that stop it. So if the decks that stop it are there, then Rhystic isn't a problem in there. Right. So I think once again, all of these things compound onto one another.
Well, my point is that it's harder to answer Rhystic Study when Bowmasters exists, because the cards that answer Rhystic Study are killed by Bowmasters. So it's just like, it doesn't really. Yes. That's kind of my point. It's just one of those things where I think that if Bowmasters goes away, I think you can start to play more Stax.
Right. And I agree with that 100%.
I think my point is held back by Bowmasters.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? Stax is held back by Bowmasters, but the point is, I think you can still kill two birds with one stone if people look at a Rhystic ban, and I think it's more likely to happen than an Orcish Bowmasters ban, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
I don't think you need to ban Rhystic Study. I also don't think it's very likely to get banned.
I don't know, man. People really fucking hate it in casual too, though. Like that's
I know that they hate it in casual, but the talk that I'm aware of is about Dockside more than anything.
Okay. So here's the deal. If Dockside goes, cEDH takes a tank. Like, not gonna lie, the format's in a really bad spot. I think the format looks so unhealthy if Dockside is the first thing to go. It is one of the only, like, look at the cEDH metagame breakdown right now. It is the only thing keeping not Blue Farm, not Rogside decks in check. Like realistically, it's Sisay and it's Kenrith and it's decks like that. They're the only things competing. And it's a large portion of those is because of Dockside. And I think if Dockside goes, the cEDH meta becomes awful, truly.
I don't know that I agree with that. I think the cEDH meta is so heavily warped around that card that it is propelling decks like Tim the Crumb and Rogsai versus propelling.
Not compared to Sisay, right? Sisay becomes unplayable with that.
I don't agree with
Kenrith
that.
Becomes unplayable without that.
I don't know. Yes. I mean, Kenrith definitely takes a hit from that. But like, I don't think that's a bad scenario that a 5-color soup deck takes a hit from that.
Well, Cal, like, look at these other decks, right? Like the other things that provide diversity to this format, right? Like Gruul as a color combination becomes unplayable, right? Like Atali immediately loses any space in the top decks in the format, right? Like I can go through all these decks that are represented top EDH top 16 to show you how bad a Dockside ban is for this format, right? Like,
sure. I'm not necessarily saying that we should ban it, but I'm saying that, like, I think that the estimation that it would make for a terrible metagame, I think is a little overblown, because I don't think that it puts Rogsai and Tymna or Tymna Crom up super far. I think that those decks take the biggest hit from that, because
I super disagree. They use those pieces. It is not a part of the game plan. It is not an integral part of the plan. I can play Rogsai without ever touching a Dockside, right?
Sure you can. But my point is that it allows other decks to play. And again, we talk about with Stax, it makes me more willing to play like enchantment hate cards, right? And artifact cards,
I can agree with
hate,
that.
right?
Yeah.
It makes me more willing to play more hate pieces that aren't creatures if there isn't a dockside that totally like punishes me for playing those things.
No, that part I agree with, right? But I still think it's extremely unhealthy for the format period, right? Like,
I don't agree with you, but that's fine. I think that the format isn't super healthy, TBH, but
look at the meta breakdown. What do you mean?
Yeah,
this is the most diverse meta in Magic. You see very different numbers than I do, apparently.
We talk about it all the time. We talk about it every month, and I don't think that it's like skewed heavily in one direction. I think there's plenty. I think there is diversity, but I think trying to say that it's good right now, we don't need anything, is kind of not totally true. But that's my perspective on it. I think that the persistence of breach decks with Rogsai and the proliferation of Dockside and Underworld Breach just being so central to so many game plans, I think is an indication that might be a little too good. But
I mean, I have no problem arguing that Breach is too good, right? I think that's been very obvious since the card was printed, right? Most of the strategies that rely around that card are fundamentally broken, and the card was literally supposed to be a potentially fixed Yawgmoth Well and end up being a better one. So it's
strictly better Yawgmoth Well.
So.
I mean, and that's really the question we were asking. But regardless, I think if Stax to get good again, I think you got to get rid of Bowmasters. I think you have to have a way of dealing with Dockside that is better than Torpor Orb effects. I think that is a huge issue too. But I think Dockside's a huge thing in the way of Stax decks, is you just kind of get punished for playing Stax cards. So the other issue with Stax is you need to have a high enough density of Stax effects for them to be worth playing. And the only ones that exist right now are really rule of laws, and those aren't necessarily advantageous to play.
Yeah. Or the other effects that are just really hard to break parity on, right? Like anti-ETB effects and stuff like that, or anti-artifact effects, which are good, but how do you keep up in cEDH if you can't use artifacts, right?
Well, especially when there's Bowmasters, right? Because then all your creatures get nuked.
Exactly.
So it's just
exactly. No, I don't disagree that Bowmasters is the central problem, right?
No, I know you and I agree there.
I think if you want Stax to exist in cEDH at all, which I think is very healthy for the format because it creates a rock, paper, scissors, that Bowmasters cannot stay around, because it punishes decks that care about creatures to a comically ridiculous degree. To be frank, I think it is. And you everyone I know who says it's not that big of a deal is not someone who plays creature decks, right? Literally just fundamentally everyone who I know who goes, it's fine, has been people who do not play creature decks. It's always the blue farm players and the rockside players who are always oh yeah, it's fine. It's not really working in the format. It's well, of course you're not feeling it. Right. I don't know.
Anyhow, next question is from Greg, punted again is the username. And the question is, with Ian's success on a variety of decks, I was curious how much testing he does on each deck before tournaments.
None. Yeah.
It's all vibes, baby.
Upsettingly, yeah, for sure. It's a lot of vibes, but also that's the thing. You put in your 10,000 hours and your ad nauseam deck is the same as your ad nauseam deck, and et cetera, right? There are tougher decks that I've played, right, where it is just play patterns that I'm not used to. They're atypical, or it is a deck that requires more grace, more time, more understanding because it is so atypical, right? Those are the decks that maybe I should play a few more games on, right? Like Derevi took me a couple weeks to get right? Like the tuning of that deck. Mm-hmm. But then I started playing it and it felt right, and I brought it to a top 16. I was very happy with that, right? For example, Shorakai was one I brought to the bonfire, ended up getting 17th place in that tournament, which is a heartbreaker. But right. Also, the reason that I was not successful with that one was because I had a lot of good ideas, but I was missing on a few of them. Mm-hmm. And it showed during the tournament, right? Like there was a point where I was like, man, if I played Defense Grid in this deck, I would have won 2 more games this day, which is like huge, right? Like a single inclusion that I could have figured out by some testing games definitely came back to bite me in the ass, right? So I cannot go into every single tournament and try stuff and be successful every single time without trying it, right? That's not how these things work. But I do sort of have enough experience under my belt that there are times like this where I pick up a deck and try it. Like, for example, Corvold this weekend. My first round on that deck was the first time I've ever sleeved up Corvold, ever played it, period. Not even
the fact that was the first time you'd ever played Corvold is genuinely shocking to me.
Yeah.
Like,
I just hadn't had much interest in it beforehand. Maybe because of the way it was being built, but like I was just like, no, I'm good on Corvold. And I had a great time, honestly. Won a whole tournament with it. Felt great.
Not shocked. No, I mean, like, if anybody does more testing between the two of us, it's me, where I like rigorously test like 1 or 2 decks over periods of time, and then we'll just come back with like a report of like, all right, here's the shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely a tuner, right? Like there are tuners, there are brewers. I'm a brewer for sure, right? That's my ish, and I can tune. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's what I do with a lot of lists. I tune them to my comfort, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, for a lot of these decks, I do just sort of pick them up and go. But once again, like I'm not breaking the wheel every single time, right? Like I'm not breaking the chain, reinventing the wheels. Right? Yeah.
I was picking up what you were putting down.
Yeah, for sure. Making up new phrases and everything. But yeah, it's there's definitely a lot of time that went into getting me to the place where I feel comfortable doing this part of the process, right? And you will hear from anyone I work with, any of my clients, where I will never recommend my own process because I do not think it's a good process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, you've seen me, like, it's very much a, like, every deck that I do goes through like 10 fucking revisions before I even make it mildly public.
Yeah.
It's just, that's how I roll. And Ian's the opposite, but why brewing together is fun, because we'll like start a thing and then I'll just go like, me and Phoenix will just go like ape shit for a while, and then we'll come back and you're like, oh, I'm like 5 decks away now. Next question we got here is from multiple people. So the question is, how do we make green better? It's like generally what the questions are. Like they're all kind of worded like a little bit differently, but like the general vibe is, what do we think would make green more playable?
You ready for what I think is the most cringe real answer? Mm-hmm. Green Dockside. like actually the best thing to be doing in green right now is tutoring a Dockside on the battlefield. Like without a doubt. Mm-hmm. If you look at Sisay, if you look at Corvold, if you look at Kenrith, if you look at any amount of green decks right now, the thing that they are doing that is the best thing the green and red do together is tutoring out and playing a Dockside Extortionist. Mm-hmm. So, maybe untap any amount of basic forests. Like, I don't know. Or I
was about to say that, where it was like, if it was like a scape shift type effect that brought stuff in untapped. Yeah, I think that would be a lot more compelling. I understand why you can't do that, because it would kind of cause a lot of issues outside of EDH. Some pretty major issues, actually. Yeah. But
I mean, they could print it in a commander product, right? Like that's like they did with Dockside itself.
Yeah, I think like if you did something that was like, if you templated a card that was like based like Dockside-esque, where it was like, literally just dockside, but you get that many like lands from your deck and put them onto the battlefield. Like that, I think would be super solid, and I think that would make.
I think that would be way too good if you brought the lands out from your deck and put them on the battlefield forever. That's crazy.
It was like basic lands, right? Like it's like, so for every artifact and enchantment your opponents have, you get that many basic lands.
I think that would be insane, to be honest. I think that
would be insane, but it also like incentivizes you to play less colors, right?
Yeah. No, because I think that card would be actually really cool to see in the format, like if it's played like that, for sure.
Because I think like if you did it like that, you like think about the shit you could do with like fucking like what's the blue green deck that I'm blanking on right now.
Taddy?
What?
Tadiova?
Yeah, with like Tadiova, right? Like
yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is like landfall is so oppressive and casual, they would never print this. That's the problem, right? Like,
I also think that there is just a lot of unexplored space in green, because there's a lot of people who have just been like, oh, that's casual, and it's like, okay, but have we considered maybe it's a little bit better than that, right? Like, I think that green is not as bad as people say it is.
I agree.
I think people just don't get the same, like, what's the word? Like, they don't get the same like serotonin boost or whatever the.
I will also say, like, there's a lot of like green is very xenophobic as a color, right? Like, it does not like working with other colors, right?
It's very good in low doses.
Right. It's like, if you look, the tutors are awesome for green, but like a lot of the best green cards are like Cradle, which taps for a bunch of green mana, and then like things that play a bunch of lands, a very green thing to be doing, or things that are devoted to green, like Mono Green and Pioneer right now, right? Like a lot of big green things care about forests, right? Like it is, a lot of the busted stuff is very much like green hangs out with green and green alone. Green will not hang out with other people.
Well, like I even think about like, I don't know, like Kinnan, right? Like I don't think green is bad. Like I think like green is great. It's just it plays on a different axis than the way that I think most people want to play, and I think that's the issue.
Well, the thing is also, Kinnan is I actually believe I described it to Wounded Satellite as cocaine green, because it is just like when your mana dorks are soul rings, it's kind of a completely different equation. You know what I mean? Like it's like not even comparable.
Like that's a super green ability.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a very green ability. And that's the thing, is where it's like when people tell me that like green is bad, I'm like, one of the best decks in the format is fucking green. Like, what are you talking about? Like I think green plays on an axis that people are not like, they it's much more permanent based. And I think a lot of people in this format want to be doing like, I cast this spell and then I cast this spell and then I put LED on the battlefield.
You know what the other thing is, Cal, that we haven't even talked about in this episode a bunch, is that green decks are really susceptible to fucking Bowmasters.
Wow. Nobody ever has brought up Bowmasters in this episode. We haven't talked about that at all. It's totally out of the blue.
TLDR, the last two answers are the same, or the last, I guess, like a couple answers ago at this point. But like, green is just suffering from the same thing that Stax decks are suffering from. And if you notice, there was a lot of really healthy green X Stax decks in the format that operated on a cool axis a while ago. But
you know what I will say? I will say this. Do you think Elvir is like one of those green decks where every time I see it, I'm like, damn. Every time I play against an Elvir deck, I'm like more and more impressed by it. I still think it has the same issues Winota has, but I'm just like, I think this is better than most people give it credit for. Like,
I agree with that exact wording in the assessment. Yes. It is so weird. It is like a deck that people recommend to me or ask me about all the time, and I just have like negative desire to work on Elvir.
Yeah, same. It's just like colors that I don't really care. Like two colors put together that it's just like, ugh.
I think I've made my feelings on Selesnya pretty clear through multiple YouTube shorts on either my or Alan's channel.
I love white and I love green, not together.
Yeah. You ever have those friends? You're like, oh, they're great. And that other one, great. Together, they're fucking the worst. Shut
They're
up.
the worst.
Like,
every time they're together, I'm like, shut the fuck up. The only reason they're tolerable in 5 colors is because they're grouped together, so you can ignore them.
Yeah, the other guys kind of balance them out a little bit.
They can kind of go hang out with their other friends at that party.
Oh, I'm glad we share the same feelings about Selesnya.
Oh my gosh. Next question is from Ethan. Why is Sultai in such a rough spot right now? And if you had to play a Sultai deck, what Sultai deck would you play?
Well, the thing with Sultai is it's stuck with this little color called green.
I actually don't think Sultai's in pets.
I think
It's bad if you're trying to play Nas.
so. Here's my hot take. I think Sultai and Dimir are both in a bad spot right now.
Mhm.
I think they're both barely playable. Everybody goes, well, blue black's playable because you got Oracle and Kotzel. And Talion is the only blue black deck that wins anything. Like, truly.
Well, it's also we're going to come back to that. But
Yeah. Right, but like that's it, right? Like blue black on its own doesn't do anything. Blue black green, like what does green add? And this is my thing, right? cEDH is a format where turn order matters, right?
Mhm.
One of the equalizers of the format is Dockside, right? So being a mid-range deck without Dockside takes you off the ability to catch up with your opponents, right?
Mhm.
If you are going fourth in a Sultai deck, and I've seen this, I've seen Tavesh Thrasios players who are like pretty competent, know what they're doing, play the game well. In first and second seat, you can be like, wow, this deck is so underplayed. And then as soon as they hit third or fourth seat, you're like, what the fuck are they even doing? Like, are they in this game at all? Like they've just gotten blown out four
I think
times.
there's also this issue, and this is more of a like general thing that I've talked about, is that I think there is a tendency in green decks, especially like a Sultai deck, right, to play more dorks or to play dorks because you're in green, right?
Yeah.
But I actually think that's completely incorrect because for the reasons you stated, I think you need to be like on all the fast mana.
Yeah.
And that the dorks are like, you just play Birds of Paradise,
Deathrite, maybe.
Deathrite, and then what's the
Deep Shadow?
Yeah. No, what?
Elves of Deep Shadow?
No, you don't play Deep Shadow. You play the fucking halfling.
Delight Halfling. Yeah.
Delighted halfling. Those are the 3. That's it. And then the rest of it, you jam it with mana dorks. And if you're looking at me and you're like, but Cal, Dockside, stop trying to play around Dockside. You're not gonna. You're just not going to. You're not going to. Everybody I've ever seen try to play around Dockside loses playing because somebody else played a Dockside. You're just not going to play around it. It's just play the fucking mana rocks. Just deal with it. Play your clone effects. Like play clone effects. Why are
if
you
you're worried about Dockside, you have Manglehorn, right? Like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's
you play Blind Obedience, you play Manglehorn, you play Dauntless Banner Alert. That's how you play around Dockside.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I know, I'm totally with you, right?
I'm sorry, I'm going on this tirade because I just get so many people who are just like, oh, I don't want to put Monkshople in my green deck because I could play a mana dork. And I'm just like, yeah, but your mana dork fucking dies to a pellet being thrown at it at the wrong speed. So like somebody threw a paper clip at it. Oh no, it's dead.
I got all these paper clips and I don't even know where to throw them.
Got hit by an envelope. My Elves of Deep Shadow died.
That's what the Bowmaster's meta is, everybody. Wake up, people.
But no, I mean, that to me is the issue that Sultai is facing right now, is that I just think I say this all the time on the show, but I think people just build things wrong because they get wrapped up in these like kind of outdated building philosophies, right? Like they don't adapt to what metas are giving and what things are playing. And it's just like, granted, maybe we have a different perspective on it because we interact with cEDH on a level that maybe most people don't, right? But at the same time, how many people do we know who's been saying the same shit as this forever? It's just stop using these like antiquated building decisions, right? Like, let me use Modern as an example, right? If I tried to build there's one deck that is an exception to this rule. But if I tried to build a deck in Modern the same way as I built a deck in Modern in 2016, I'm going to lose a lot of fucking games.
Well, I think that's a little hyperbolic, right? Just because Modern has changed so much, right? But if you look at it, we can compare it to Legacy and Vintage, which does not shift as nearly as much.
Right.
But still, if you put it under the lens of half a fucking decade, it does, right?
Yeah.
Like in Wizards is not chill, right? Like they are printing stuff to play.
I mean,
like,
we're getting
metagame
shakeups every other month, it feels like, right? Like, it's just like,
yeah, ish. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But there's a new tool that goes to a different deck, right? Where it's like, now you have to play around this thing. Now you have to play around this thing.
Yeah.
And that's not something we dealt with pre-2020, realistically.
Sure.
And I think there is a lot of pre-2020 building practices that we're seeing with.
Oh, you're preaching the choir here for sure. Right?
You don't need to play that many dorks. You just don't.
Yeah,
I
mean, to be honest, I think people started to figure out how to build in the aughts, right? The 2020s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, then halfway through last year, the entire format fundamentally changed with the printing of Bowmasters and the One Ring, right?
Yep.
And now we have to completely change the way we build stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why I literally do not use data from before Bowmasters printing. I don't use it. I never filter by that long from EDH Top 16. I think anyone who does is doing themselves a disservice because they're watching a different format.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Just period. Like I consider a lot of that information pretty useless. Will I still explore old archetypes? Absolutely. I go on deep dives and weird shit all the time, but
cough to Revy.
Right, exactly, right. Or 6 mana Narset, right? Like don't get me wrong, I will happily use some boomer tech, right? But the point is, it doesn't mean that I'm going to take concrete tournament data from January of last year and be like, well, this is relevant.
Listen, folks, there's a reason that we don't win with seasons past loops anymore. Okay? Like, you were able to make that adaptation in the metagame, and I feel like nobody has grown past that in Sultai. It's just like, oh, but we still have Elvish Mystic, Ian. What am I going to do without this Elvish Mystic?
Well, I think you definitely have harped on one particular problem Sultai has, and I while I do agree that people are definitely a little too hard on the dorks, right? I will also say there is a pretty big part of this that is just that Sultai has bad win conditions, right? Like, realistically, the Sultai win conditions right now are kind of shit. I don't think many of them are very good. I think Food Chain's the best one by a country mile. I think Thoracle Consult has the lowest investment, but it's still a bad combo. Like, it loses to Mental Misstep. Like, sorry, no thanks. Realistically, if you want to consider your combo good, Thoracle Consult's good, don't get me wrong, but you don't have Grand Abolisher, you don't have Ranger Captain to protect it, right? These things are flimsy at best. Right, this is a mid-range metagame. People are expecting to answer spells. If you assume you're going to win with the same bullshit that won 5 years ago, you're wrong, right? Like, honest, it's just not happening.
Like, if you are playing without white or red right now in this format, I think you're doing a disservice to yourself, personally.
Yeah, and there are exceptions to every rule, right? Don't get me wrong. But, like, what do you win with? And I saw you kind of making a face when I'm going on about win conditions, right? But, like, what do you win with in Sultai? Mm-hmm. Literally.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think Sultai is still very good, but again, I think my biggest issue with it, I don't know that I agree with that whole send. I agree with it mostly, but like, I do think there are good win conditions there. I think we're just kind of like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, list one. Like, what is a good win condition in Sultai? Like, I cannot pull one off the top of my head. I mean, right? And I know every fucking niche win condition there is. There's Hermit Druid, the X one.
Okay,
the X one that like holds to an entire turn rotation of people having interaction, and then if they do finally have interaction,
that's why we don't build things the same way that we built things 4 years ago.
Right, but how does Hermit Druid win nowadays anyways? It's not doing anything exceptional. It's not gained
because
any
nobody's
new
doing anything with it. That's the issue. Like, it's
I think Hermit Druid's problem is the fact that it's not being innovated upon. It's people try it, people love that shit. It's not good.
I'm not saying it's like groundbreaking, but it is another win condition that is solid. And I think there's just no innovation happening in that color pairing because, again, I don't think it's very sexy. And I think that's a huge part of it. And
I don't
honestly,
I know a lot of people who want to make Sultai a thing. I work with a lot of people who want to make it a thing, and they struggle with the actual win conditions and turning the corner in these games because they don't have red's explosivity and they don't have white's ability to say "fuck you," your spells are off. They just don't have those things, right?
Well, I guess this is my perspective on it. Is it's just like I feel like you have to you got to play to what the color's strengths are. Right. And I think something that Sultai does exceptionally well is it does the whole graveyard manipulation thing better than like most color pairings can.
Sure.
And so like, that's one of the things where I'm just kind of like, how do we play with that? And I feel like it's a lot of there's a reason why I like cEDH so much, right? It's because cEDH plays to the color's strengths really well.
I agree.
And so it's just one of those things where
But this is where it comes in though. Reanimator is awful right now. Reanimator is actually terrible because you need two disparate A plus Bs that don't revolve around the command zone, right? You need to be able to assemble these combos. You need to probably use cards like Survival of the Fittest, which means you have to pack your deck full of creatures, which means that you pack your deck full of creatures, which are currently bad in the current metagame, or you're using Entomb or Unmarked Grave, which don't even get me started about the lack of actually good playable Entomb effects, which is actually huge.
We had that. We went through that like whole fucking thing when we were brewing Arden Vial Smasher, when we were just like, fuck, is like our only option Entomb here? Like,
and like we have Unmarked Grave, but it's like, okay, cool, it gets Godo only, right?
No, it can't hit Godo because
it can't get Godo.
It can't even hit Godo. No, I totally agree with you. But when I say like play to the color strengths, it's like there are dredge elements. There's more. What Sultai is able to do because of the colors that it has, this is able to empty its graveyard in more like creative ways than like maybe like Mardu, right?
Sure.
And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at is like I think there's stuff there. I think it's just finding it, bringing it together. That's like a bigger thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is stuff there. The problem is just like there's so much engine with no payoff, right? Like that's the problem. Is like cEDH, you need a payoff, you need a combo 100%. Outlet, you need a way to actually fucking win the game.
Right? I fully agree with you. Next question here is from one Jason. When testing a deck, do you aim to play against common tournament meta decks, or are you just willing to jam against anything? A good question. I mean, you don't test decks. So
well, as I said, I don't always test decks. I do know how to test decks. I have tested.
I don't know. I test. I try to see like play against things that are like the most common. But like if you're going into like a particular, like I think a great example is like when I was testing stuff going into like the what was it? The Cincinnati and Columbus events, right? Columbus, I didn't do very much testing for, but Cincinnati, right? Where I was like, okay, I kind of have an idea of what these events look like and what this general area pulls. And so it's like, okay, so I'm expecting to see Atraxa. I'm expecting to see some number of Atali. I'm expecting to see some number of, this thing because I've seen this and I know the people that play here in this region. And so it's like you can kind of test based on that and kind of gravitate towards that. And I think that's like the way to test is like you kind of test against what you're expecting people to bring to a particular tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a very nuanced question with a very explicitly like nuanced answer. TLDR, if you're going to a local event, get an idea what the local scene looks like, and you can probably cater appropriately, right? Like whenever I'm going to Massachusetts, I know I'm going to be playing against grindy mid-range decks, so I'm not calling out my Rogside buddies and saying, hey, kick my teeth in with this deck and let me learn, right? Because that's not going to be teaching me lessons I want to learn. I play against everybody,
right? Like I think,
right. I play against anybody and everybody, and that I think has served me in the past, right? Like because cEDH tournaments are full of random people, right? Once again, if you're going to a local scene, maybe play against the people in that local scene because you're gonna be forced to play against those people anyways. And if they know you, then they're gonna play like they know you, and you're gonna have to deal in the tournament with them playing like they know you. Other way around, right? If you're going to a big tournament, you're going to Cowtown, you're going to an Eminence event, maybe I'll have an idea what Ohio players are doing. Maybe I have an idea what people will play in the Eminence circuit or Top Deck circuit. Pardon me. But you just play
meta,
against
it's
deck.
the same thing.
if you are preparing for the cEDH meta as a whole, play against the good stuff for sure, because you'll want to know what your bad matchups are. I play against, for example, I'm playing Sisse. Like Proxy is my bad matchup, so I want to know how that game goes, right? Like stuff like that. And I'm going to make those adjustments, and I'm going to move accordingly throughout those games. But just play games. cEDH is constantly full of variables, full of variants. It is not 60 card. You are not looking at 15 cards times 4, right? Like it is a full fleshed out format that has so many variables in it. Just get comfortable piloting your pile of cards. There are bad matchups. There are good matchups. There are bad people to be playing against. It's going to happen. But like, just get your games in. That's what counts. Don't be picky. Just fucking play Magic. Like, and this is a piece of advice I give to a lot of clients too. It's just like, don't be afraid to get your ass kicked, right? Like, genuinely, if you're like, oh, I have this local people I know, or like I know these grinders live near me, or there's a server where I know it's a lot of good players, like go let them absolutely wipe the floor with you and learn from it. Losing's the best way to learn, and I can't suggest that enough, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and that being said, like my answer is very just like, like I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I'm basically just saying if you have a general idea, like prepare in a certain way, right? Like you're saying, and if you're going in blind, just like play, but against whatever, right?
Yeah.
Next question here comes from Nicholas. And the question is, of the Sculptybois, who would last longer on Survivor?
I think we both would like to believe that we would do it.
No, I am under I have no faith in my ability to last on Survivor whatsoever. I could last on Big Brother. I would last 5 minutes on Survivor and be like, you know what? Vote me out, guys. See ya.
Yeah.
Oh shit, we won immunity. God damn it.
I have a daydream of ending up on that show at some point. I'm gonna apply soon. Yeah, that's really. I actually really love Survivor, and
Survivor's
very much
both
would like to go on. Last season I had a friend on from college. This season, Lua has a friend. So like, it's one of those things. It feels like it keeps getting closer and closer. Like I'm just trying to find the right opportunity to do it. So
you go on Survivor
really
and become big. Don't forget me.
Jesus.
No, it's like I think between the two of us, you would be the most likely to last the longest on Survivor because you're the only one that's willing to go on. I think if we included the extended Sculptyverse,
sure.
I think Phoenix would be my pick for who would last the longest.
Honestly,
he camps all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Phoenix would go on Survivor and just be like, I'm in heaven, guys.
Well, the thing I think about all the time is I'd be like, oh, good, a reward challenge. And they'd be like, it's a bread with cheese on it. And I'm just like, I sorry, everyone else win. I'm just going to.
That's this season.
I'm watching for sure. Liz,
this season, the person, I forget her name, but
Liz,
Liz, who's just like allergic to everything you can eat on the island. It is just like, I'm starving. And it's like, why'd you go on Survivor if you're allergic to everything?
Yeah. Like, I haven't pooped in 20 days. I'm like, all right, Liz, see you fun.
Oh my goodness. Next question here from Joe. Question is, when June Pride Month Commander Partner pairings, all legends have partner, would you guys play one of those for cEDH event, and who would it be?
So if every legend has partner.
Yeah. Which is what they're doing for June Pride Month. It's like at those commander events.
Yes. Okay. I had a couple spicy combos. Rog Kinnan was a real good one that I was a big fan of.
Oof.
Rog Kinnan's a really spicy quesadilla that I'm a big fan of.
I would want to play Timna Joyra Weatherlight Captain.
Okay.
Give me 4-color Joyra. That's all it is. Timna's there for the colors.
Yeah, raw Joyra would also be kind of hot.
Yeah, it would.
There's also like the cursed answer of like Tim the First Sliver, just like fucking just absolute monstrous answers, right? But
Rograxis.
Yeah, actually, probably wouldn't even want to pick the First Sliver. I'd probably be like, what's a good teamer one? Like Teamer Omnath, right? Or even like 4-color Omnath. Yeah,
that'd be pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would go for the memes. I can't help myself. I'd be Timna Joyra all goddamn day. Joyra's like one of my favorite decks of all time. Like I fucking love that deck.
Yeah, I just keep imagining all the decks that I love that don't have red. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like Atraxa Rograk. Like, you know, it's like stupid shit like that.
Every time I've ever played Joyra in my life, I've been like, God damn, I wish this had white. And that literally always my reaction to playing that deck is, man, I wish this had white in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is there's that. Let's see.
We're all my Rograk Atraxa fans out there.
What'd you say?
So we're all my Rograk Atraxa fans out there.
Rog Atraxa fans. That is fucking cursed. Next question is from Alex. Why do y'all not give Yuriko the credit she deserves? This was what I was kind of, giving a little bit of foreshadowing earlier too. You want to take this one, buddy?
Okay. So to answer this question, I'm going to head over to EDH Top 16. Well, I guess I'll answer the question with a question, which is, what is the perceived credit that Yuriko is to be deserving?
Do you want to know what Yuriko's win percentage was last month? Not its conversion percentage, just its flat win percentage. 16%. Its conversion percentage was 7.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
feels like maybe we're giving it the appropriate.
What more do you want me to give it? When it's good, I've given it an honorable mention, and when it's bad, I don't talk about it.
Listen, Yuriko is a fun deck. It is unique, and people can build it in a way that is cEDH viable. And the fact that there are really good, dedicated pilots to this deck who still just get top 16s, and like no one's really done well with it since the Mox Masters meta, right? Like, it's a deck that underperforms all the time. Now, do I think that there are ways to build Yuriko that are underexplored and that we can mess with more? Absolutely, sure. Well, right. Yeah, go for it. But it's also just like a deck that is not good for this metagame, right? Like, you might argue that like it's a deck and you're like, oh, well, as the games get longer, it's good, right? And it's like, well, yes, but it doesn't have many answers to the problems of the format, right? Which is the fact that it still tries to win with like things like the Oracle Consult, which are kind of awkward to assemble in Yuriko. It still has the burn plan, which, unlike something like Magda, which you can just be like, oops, I accidentally unlocked it at instant speed, I lost. Yuriko's like, I have to go to combat. Is anybody going to stop me this time? You're at 5 respectively, and you will die on this combat unless something goes wrong for me. And it's like, okay, thank you, Yuriko. I'm going to phase out your command.
The like old English accent you chose for that. Like, it's very Sheriff of Nottingham.
You don't know that Yuriko is an old British man?
Yeah.
It is I, Yuriko.
Give it off some Matt Berry right now. Matt Berry Yuriko now. I need it.
Wait, who is this?
Matt Berry? You don't know who Matt Berry? I guess the thing that you would know him most from then is he's the guy who voiced Codsworth in the Fallout TV show.
Oh no, I love him. Yeah,
Matt Berry, right?
Okay. Yeah. He's the pig in the new Futurama show. That's not Futurama. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Disenchanted, that one. Yeah.
And also, I forget his name, but Yes, I hear you, Clem Fandango.
Yeah, no, he's like, I'm going to harvest your organs, right? Like that's
Next question here is from Remy. As someone who's wanting to play in the tournament scene and doesn't own an LED quotations yet, or some of the OG duels, should I be looking into only tournaments that have proxy policy or playing some that don't, even though the list won't be as tuned for experience sake?
Proxy decks, do it all the time. Proxy decks.
I say just do both.
Yeah, yes, literally do both. That is how I started the format. It's how I recommend everybody does it. Play what you can until you get stuff ready. And if you can find a deck that is easy to budget out and then very easy to make the non-budget swaps into, even better. Have 2 lists on Moxfield, completely like...
I did that for years with
identical-ish, right? And like just switch between. Super easy to do. It is actually not that hard. And yeah, many players started that way before proxies were cool, right? Like we didn't really have that. Like the first couple of tournaments that were live in person were not proxy friendly, right? Mm-hmm. So like people brought shit like,
well, I think even before, right? like at my local scene, right? In our leagues, like we couldn't have proxies there, right? And there's going to be a lot of LGSs that you play in that aren't going to let you use proxies. Because they don't want to put their like store standing
WPN status. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, and that's a thing that I think a lot of people just got to be okay with, is you got to be okay with playing without proxies because you're going to have environments where you can't use them, and that's okay too. But
when you do go into the environments where you can have proxy people, this is one of the things that annoys me the most.
I'm going to put this out because I have dealt with this over and over and over again, is if you go to an event and you are that is not proxy, they've told you don't use them, do not try to sneak proxies in. That is a really quick way of never getting to play at a store again. That is a really quick way of getting yourself on a ban list. That's not
cool.
Not cool. If somebody like literally what it is, like I've heard people like, what, are you a cop? And it's like, no, I'm respecting what the store asked of me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's all it is. I'm just being respectful of what they said. And that's all you got to do. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with it. Follow the rule of the tournament. If you get kicked out for using a proxy in a non-proxy event, good. Like you didn't follow the rule. Sorry. As somebody who has had to do that, it sucks. Nobody wants to do it. But when you are told multiple, I had one person at our old LGS, right, who got caught multiple times, and our store owner was super chill about it, gave them multiple opportunities and over and over and over and over and over again. That is not cool and okay. And it just like that shit frustrates the hell out of me. Don't try to sneak this shit in. Because it's not acceptable. It's not okay behavior. Next up, this is a good, interesting question. This is our last question we have here. And I think this is like a good ending point here is from TJC. With cEDH still being an extremely social format, I don't know why you said still, it just is a social format. But with it being an extremely social format, what should a player who is confident in their Magic fundamentals but not in their political social skills do to take their play to the next level?
Boy, have I and will I and would I continue to rant about this for hours on end?
Well, the short answer is therapy. I don't mean that in a condescending way, actually. Therapy is very good at like giving you like skills. If you're awkward in social situations, therapy is very helpful at like helping you find tools to go through that. I would venture to bet that if you struggle in like cEDH at the social things, you struggle outside of cEDH at the social things. And so it's probably just like generally beneficial. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think like Cal being punchy aside, I think, there is a certain level of like a certain amount of basic social human understanding will be helpful, right? And it's not always been analogous with Magic players throughout history and time, right? And that's okay. It's a wild thing, right? I mean, genuinely, Cal can we hit the tap the sign button, Cal, of like watch Survivor?
Watch Survivor.
But yeah, I mean, the social aspect of the game, there's actually literally some, like, we could spend dozens of hours talking about this question. Yeah. Right. But like the thing I'll leave people with, right? Be yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, and I know that's kind of crazy, right? But like, of course, it's going to sound like very stupid advice, but the amount of people I have seen who come into cEDH from 60 card or other games, stuff like that, and they do I'm going to hold the information as close to the chest, I'm not going to let anybody know what I have, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, any of that stuff, and who just leave wins on the table is infinite. Always. There will always be people who do it, and it will always come to punish them. I mean, I've had so many clients recently that have been like, hey, I came from a modern 60 card world. Why is this not working? And I'm like, well, are you sitting down and giving your opponents eye daggers at the table? Well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. No. In the other world it is, right? Not here. So yeah, I mean, like, my favorite piece of advice to give people in this format is if you sit down and relax and have fun, you're going to have a competitive advantage.
It turns out if you are nice to be around, people will be more willing to talk things through with you.
Yep.
But I think that's also generally, I think like a really good thing, like a good piece of advice I would have is like, if you don't want to like be talky the whole time, like I get like one of my big things is people who've ever played with me is I don't like dominate the conversation in a way where it's like we're not playing, but it's like the whole time I'm cracking jokes and like being quippy because it's just who I am, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like how I connect with people, and it's just very easy for me to do that.
Yeah.
But not everybody's that way, and that's fine. And so like a thing where it's like, if that's not your jive, like try, like a great piece of advice, especially for control-y players, is before you fire something off, ask. Like if somebody's tutoring, like what are you looking for with that? And if they say, I'm not telling you, okay, you have gained, literally your floor is nothing changes, and your ceiling is, I can save this spell in my hand. This goes back to the whole control thing that we're going to talk about eventually.
Yeah.
But like, ultimately the thing is your ability to just ask a question is like a 8th card in your hand at all times, because it can just, sometimes it will do nothing. Sometimes it will give you just a little more insight into what's going on in threat assessment. You talked about this in your video about your Kenrith deck, where you were playing against a deck that was like a Sisay that had what was it they had down? I forget what it was.
The Soul Cauldron, the One Ring.
Yeah. And you were just like, are you on Clam Chowder, or are you on
the other one? It was the Bloom Tender and the Guy's Cradle. Yeah.
You just asked a question. It's like, are you on Blue or on Clam Chowder, or are you on the Planeswalker version 1? And that person could have just lied if they wanted to, but they were forthcoming. They were just like, hey, this thing. And you're like, cool, I don't need to use this removal because the what you have assembled, given that information, is way less threatening. And like those sorts of things where it's just, before you act, ask, like just inquire a little bit, and it will go so far. You don't have to go super far. You don't have to like talk through people act. Like, I feel like the conversation around talking at the table is, it's like people just won't shut up and you should never talk. And there's the reality is that's not what it is.
Oh yeah, there's we could go on hour long.
Like nobody here is advocating sit and like micro analyze every single play that is happening. What I'm telling you to do is just take a breath and like think a play through a little bit more. And there are two other people. So if somebody's trying to win right there, just ask the table. Does anybody have an answer for this? Like that's it, right? Like just communicating with the table. It doesn't have to be a lot, but some form of communicating with the rest of the table you have to do, or else you're going to lose. And
and there's like a huge difference between like talking and then like social dictatorship, right? Like, and I have seen people who have been social dictators, and it is not a great, pleasant experience. You hear people talk about it afterwards. They get bad reputations, right? Like these things happen. They have happened, right? You know, and then there's just talking at the table, right? Asking a question at the right time, right? Like I've had entire matches where I've said like 5 things of merit, right? And like just because it was one of those matches where like X, Y, and Z reason made it not worth saying, right? It was okay. The match went the way it did, right? And like that's okay. So it's a little bit more of like a nuance of like talk at the right times, right? And that's an even more advanced topic to go down. But like TLDR is right. Like so I'm gonna share this story, and I haven't really talked about this a lot in public, right? But like last year, obviously, I went full time with cEDH and content creation and stuff like that. And over the summer, I had Punt City was like one of the big tournaments. Punt City 2, I brought Winota. It performed awfully. People overestimated the shit out of it. Like I just was not even allowed to play Magic, and like they would let people with like onboard Narsets attack before I was able to resolve a spell. You know what I mean?
I remember our DMs after that event were
it was not happy. It was not a happy camper. But that being said, right, so like that was the environment that I came out of, right? And then I had like one tournament after that where I struggled so hard to get top 16, and I had a tournament right before that where I like just missed the bubble, right? And I was cooked, right? And it was a time in which I committed to doing this as a job, right? And every time I bubbled out of one of these tournaments, that was just, you know, a significant chance I don't get paid that week, right? Very real thing for this environment, right? And I was in that mentality, and I was trying to do the turbo thing, and I was trying to do the grind thing, and not turbo like Nas, but turbo like just play these tournaments, do the thing, stick my head down, play, right? But I was in that grinder mindset. I was taking things too seriously. I wasn't myself. I wasn't relaxed. I was not comfortable at the table, right? And my results showed it. You know, I wasn't being myself. I wasn't playing as myself, right? So I cannot stress you enough, like the stress and the anxiety and the like need to like push this sense of like, oh, I'm a grinder. Like those things are bad for you. They do not help you win games. They do not help you win tournaments. They make you unapproachable. And like a big part of the social aspect of the game is being approachable. I went through that arc. It was not fun. I wasn't happy. No one was happy around me, right? Like, yeah, I'm not saying it was miserable the entire time, right? But like I definitely wasn't on my game, and I definitely was not playing the best I could, right? And then I took a breath, decided to be myself, and continue to be myself and push the things that I love and know how to do, and push the things that I care about in this format. And honestly, took every bit of feedback I got, took every bit of understanding I got, and it's better, you know? And all this is to say, it's like, it happens to everybody. It's very real. I know even people nowadays who are very good players who are just like shitting on their own social game because they're just going too hard at certain times, right? And it's a nuanced thing. It is difficult, but at the end of the day, genuinely, being yourself, being comfortable is a skill. cEDH, and to be comfortable, to be yourself, to be someone people want to be around. I'm not saying you have to win a popularity contest, right? Like that's not it. You know, like you don't need to be the alpha jock kid at the school, right? Like you just need to be enjoyable to play a game with, even if it's for money.
And I mean, like, I know I, you know, said ingest at the top, like therapy, right?
Yeah.
But like, those are skills that you learned in therapy, right? Yeah. And so it's like one of those things where, well, I mean, how many times on this show, or even in our debriefs after events, right, where we'll talk and we'll just be like, God, I feel like my wife is talking to me right now. My wife, you know, works in psychology. And, you know, you'll have like these things where it's like you'll learn social dynamics come into such a play where and what social looks like for you is different, but you got to be able to participate in it. You have to be able to, you know, be confident in that, and like let your personality, like Ian said, like my personality at a table is I am a jokester. I goof around because that's how I like just am. And so it's just easier for me to be focused doing that. And if it's easier for you to focus, to be like zoned in, sure, but you still have to participate in the social aspect of it, right? But yeah, great question. Beautiful time to kind of ask Ian after all of that. How can people learn? How can people get cEDH therapy?
So true. Yeah, if you want to engage in a more nuanced version of any of the discussions that we had in a one-on-one setting where I could help you personally with any of these things, feel free to reach out to me at any number of places. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm here on the Mind Sculptors. Cal is lovely enough to put all those things in the description of this video. But yeah, comedianmtg@gmail.com. Easy way to find me. At ComedianMTG on Twitter.
Not comedian MTG. You got mistagged twice today.
I literally 2 people tagged the wrong person today. I'm like, that's not even my picture. It's like the bloody clown.
Well, the thing is when it came up for me, I thought I hit you, and it was very odd. I was very confused.
Yeah. Also, comedian_MTG on Discord. Send me a DM. Any of those places. Happy to do coaching. It is something I truly love doing. It's my full-time job, and it's awesome. And it's been going so well lately. We've been doing gameplay coaching, which for people who only check out my Patreon, they don't see that a lot. But gameplay coaching is literally I'll sit out of the game, put my microphone on mute, and take notes while I'm watching people play. They send me their opening hands, sometimes draws for turns. Sometimes I chime in with judge questions or stuff like that. But like, it's been super helpful, and ever since we adjusted the way we do it, it's been really effective, and I'm very, very happy at the result. I've seen a lot of progress in people I'm working with, and especially people who've like come back for more. So it's been really, really good, and a lot of people have been really positively giving feedback there. So curious about all that stuff. Come find me in any of those places, and I'll help you out.
If you want to support the Mind Sculptors, both of us, and specifically my paycheck, you can go to patreon.com/the Mind Sculptors. Also leave a like for engagement, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps out more than you can imagine. Just hitting a like on a video that you watched is huge. Please. I'm begging. Like, but no, it's been really good. And yeah, like I said, I will be giving out some MTGO play points here shortly. So if you win that drawing, you will be getting a message from me on Discord here soon. So thank you everybody for watching and tuning in. We'll be back next week. And with that, stay frosty, everybody.
Yeah. And remember, because this was the Q&A episode, no more questions ever.
Yeah, don't ever ask us a question ever again.
But if you're gonna ask questions, put them in the comments down below.
Down below.
But don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't comment. Don't you do it. Don't you do
Whatever
it.
You do. Hey, stop. I see you.
I see you putting that nasty comment in.
Don't you? I see you clicking it.
I see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is Mind Sculptures. See you next week.